Hi, Dr. Matthew Weiner from the Michigan Weight Management Institute. Today I'm going to talk to you about how bariatric surgery really works. Now, for decades, we've believed that there were two main mechanisms by the way that bariatric surgery caused you to lose weight. The first is restriction, whereby making your stomach smaller or placing a band around your stomach, that we restrict your ability to eat and take in enough calories. And the second is by malabsorption. By separating the enzymes, the digestive enzymes, from the food, we block the absorption of calories into your bloodstream, thereby allowing you to eat fewer calories, to take in and absorb fewer calories, and lose weight by that means. However, the reason that I think we believe this is because all along we've had a misunderstanding of how people actually lose weight. We think that it's a tally of the amount of calories you burn and the amount of calories you take in that in the long run determines what your weight's going to be. But we're finding out that that's not exactly true. And so we've taken this flawed mechanism about counting calories and applied it to bariatric surgery. But there's a lot of evidence that shows us that something else is going on. The first is that postoperative patients almost never, ever lose too much weight. There are isolated incidents, but when you look carefully, these are almost always patients who've had some form of complication, and it's from the complication that they've lost all their weight, not from the malabsorptive or the restrictive properties of the operation. So you can imagine if it was about restriction, that there would be times when we would prevent you from eating enough calories, and you would end up getting painfully thin and unhealthily thin. But we just don't see that. It's about 0.5% of the time, and again, it's almost always linked to a complication rather than an actual side effect or negative consequence of the surgery itself. The second thing that we see is that once patients lose the majority of their weight, the appetite control that's so strong in their first 6-9 months after surgery, patients will tell me they have to set a reminder to eat because they have no hunger whatsoever, and that only 3 or 4 bites satisfies them. But within a year or two, they can go to eating almost a normal portion amount of food. I would say typically between 1/2 to 2/3 of the size of what most people with normal sized stomachs eat. Most patients think, well, that's because they stretch their stomach out. But when we do the swallow studies, when we do the endoscopies, that we absolutely do not see that the stomach has enlarged or stretched out. And so it's something else going on there. The other thing, and this was a disgusting study that they did, but they looked at the stool of postoperative patients, and they found that there weren't wasted food particles and there weren't calories that were not being absorbed. The patients were absorbing the calories fully. They just were burning them in a different way. And the reason that we now believe our weight is controlled is something that I call your metabolic thermostat. And what this is it's a recognition that there is some metabolic shifts and that there are neurotransmitters and hormones that are circulating through your body and through your bloodstream that impact your appetite and your metabolism. And we know that if you have whatever weight you start at, whether your weight is elevated at 300 pounds or you're a female with 120 pounds, who weighs 120 pounds, we know that if we decrease your calorie intake, that will push you away from your set point of your metabolic thermostat, and we'll see increased hunger and a decrease in your metabolism. And so that explains why typical dieting results in plateaus, where you restrict your calorie intake. The first week on a diet is great. The second week, good, but not as good. By the third week, you start to see a slowing of your metabolism. You start to increase your hunger, and we see all these changes. What we don't recognize is that on the other side of things, your hunger will decrease if you eat too many calories and you have a healthy metabolism, a metabolism that's not being negatively affected by medications or stress or any number of other factors. Will have a decrease in your hunger and an increase in your metabolism. The example I always give of when we see patients in the overfed state is on for New Year's resolutions. Throughout the December holidays, we see most people out there, most Americans, will gain 5 or so pounds. And when they do that, they're now going to be on the overfed side. They're going to have a decrease in their hunger, so they're going to be very willing to go on even the most restrictive diets. It seems very plausible when you don't have a lot of hunger. And your metabolism is going to increase, and it's not just about this oven that burns the calories, but it has to do with your willingness to move And so you're going to start to move your body more, and you're going to sign up for the gym because exercise sounds like a lot of fun because you have all these extra calories you're trying to burn off. So we know that there's some neurotransmitters and some hormones, we call this your neurohormonal axis, that is controlling our weight beyond just the willpower that we're exhibiting to control our calorie intake. And what we see with bariatric surgery, and a much more appropriate way to think about how it works, is not by blocking your intake of food, not by causing the calories to go out. In fact, patients don't have increased frequency in their bowel movements after these surgeries, but by a shift in your set point. So when we put someone to sleep and do a gastric bypass or a sleeve gastrectomy, and then we wake them up, over the next few days, we're going to see a shift in this neurohormonal axis where they may go to sleep at 300 pounds and they wake up at 170 pounds in their brain. So their brain now looks at what's going on and says, I have 130 extra pounds. I am dramatically on this overfed side. And so I'm going to decrease my hunger. And I'm going to increase my metabolism. And we see this, again, patients have to practically remind themselves to eat. They just have no hunger. Food doesn't look good. And when they are hungry, they're hungrier for healthier choices. Fruits and vegetables are much more appealing than pizza and donuts right after the surgery. You can ask any patient about that. We also see an increase in the metabolism. Patients will frequently tell me they got a lot of energy. And they develop what I call the gastric bypass swagger, which is when they walk with increased hip and arm movement. And that's their body's attempt to burn as many calories as possible. And as over those next 6 to 9 months, as their weight comes back closer to their new set point, we start to see the appetite control diminish. And instead of just a few bites of food and having to remind yourself, you now start to develop a reasonable appetite. And people's belief that for the rest of your life you're never going to be able to eat normally after bariatric surgery is false. It's not like that. You can eat normally. In fact, that's typically the greatest downfall of the surgery, is that you can eat too normally. And ultimately, when you get back down to that new set point, you can eat and have taste preferences back to the way they were before surgery. But now we're at a lower weight, and we have a second chance to keep the weight down, to eat healthy, and to maintain our body weight at this new set point. So in summary, bariatric surgery works by shifting your neurohormonal axis to a lower weight, not by restriction and malabsorption. You can learn more about bariatric surgery and our weight loss programs at www.drmatthewweiner.com or give us a call. We're located in Commerce, Michigan. Thank you.